Welcome to Insight, a series exploring the deeper philosophies of renowned traditional martial artists, hosted by Ray Hughes, a martial artist with 50 years of experience.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to take a second or so and explain the purpose of this podcast. As we martial artists train and work out, we are involved with hundreds, if not thousands, of different martial artists, especially over our whole career. And yet, we really don't know who these people are. We know their names and the things that they're doing, but we really don't know them personally. So the point of this broadcast is to bring these people to the show and get a feeling of why, when, and where did they start their martial arts? What did they learn? What is their philosophies? What is their mission in life? And maybe some bits of information can be passed on to those who are following us on a martial arts path. So with that, with today's guest, I welcome Kelley Hutta. Welcome, Kelley. Thank you for being a part of the show. It's an honor. Full disclosure, Kelley is a very close friend of mine. We've known each other for many decades. I am a fan of hers. I think she is a Renaissance woman. She does many things and does them well, not like myself. She is a dojo owner, and anybody that's ever run a dojo knows the struggles that are involved with that. So she does that. She also owns her own physical fitness business. She homeschools 4 kids. She is a WIKF technical advisor, bringing technical knowledge from international to our Arizona schools. She produces a couple of health products and recently got her PKF license, which is the Pan American Karate Federation license, in officiating through USA Karate. So I think that's pretty cool. So with that, Kelley, how, when, and where did you start your career?
Thank you so much for having me on. I started, goodness, I probably started training when I was 10 years old, and it was kind of trial by fire. So it started off with my brothers. One of my brothers got targeted by a group of kids coming home from school right after we moved to Arizona. We were kind of hicks, grew up on a ranch in western Colorado.
Me
So
too, I get it.
so when we moved into the city, I don't think we meshed very well, and I think it was a lot harder for my brothers, particularly. They had a pretty distinct idea of right and wrong, and I think he ended up stepping in it with a group. And anyway, there was a group of boys that would just wait outside of our home and jump him, and so we started like going home together, and that's we learned how to fight. So, and then at some point, it went from like kind of informal training from like from my parents and their friends to actually going to a dojo and actually learning how to fight and yeah. So I learned how to fight with my brother.
All siblings that have older brothers seem to feel like they do pretty well, girl or boy. A couple of
Well,
things I
God
wanted
bless
to
you, but they're
ask.
not older, they're younger.
So you're the muser here. Yeah, that bullying thing's interesting. I experienced that from 4th to 7th grade, and I want to go into that at a future show because that bowling experience, as bad as it was, and it was really, really bad. I just remember looking at the clock at the last class of the day, just praying that would never hit 3 o'clock, because when 3 o'clock hit, school ended, and I had to walk outside and get off the property. And there was always 4 or 5 guys there beating people up. I wasn't the only one, and it was horrible. But in retrospect now, that really helped me become a better martial artist, a better martial art teacher. So it's funny how bad things in the past come back to be a positive. Well, let me ask you this. So you're getting bullied. What did you guys do? Say, I need to go to a karate school? How did that come up?
I mean, again, like you said, it was kind of this almost daily thing. The police were called at least twice. The beatings were
Oh
getting so
man.
bad, and again, it was a gang of guys that were trying to hurt my brother. And we learned to fight back to back, and we had to learn how to throw a punch because at first it was just a frenzied survival thing. But at some point we had to be a little bit more strategic in knowing how to hit and where to hit because there was too many people. So learning how
Yes.
to fight like that. And uh and I was the bigger sister. So like you said, what was it, 4th to 7th grade? Because that's pretty much the
Yeah.
window we were in. I think he was 4th grade and I was 7th grade. So or maybe I was 6th grade. So we were definitely in that, and it lasted almost the entire year. I remember asking some of my girlfriends in my class like to come home because I thought maybe if there were more girls there we wouldn't get jumped, and that was a mistake. That was a terrible idea. They were just as equally willing to attack the girls as the boys, but Yeah. I also learned that there was one time I misjudged something and I got a solid hit to the face. Like I was engaged. I was trying to get this kid off of my brother, and he turned around and swung at me, and I got hit hard. And I remember being dazed for a minute, but I also remember seeing my brother's face go dark when he saw me get hit. And I mean, it's been a running joke in the family, like, don't mess with my brother, because when he got that cloud hit, he turned into like Superman. It was like Yoda just throwing people over the place. You don't hit his sister.
I have this vision of Christmas
He's very
Story.
protective.
That
So
Christmas
yeah.
Story was going crazy. You
Yes,
know,
yes.
now these guys weren't the Gilbert Goons that we've been hearing
No,
about.
no. That was
For
years
those out
before
there
that.
in the world watching this podcast, that's a group of thugs that were actually became a national story where they were going around beating up people, even mostly high school people. Unbelievable. So you get into martial arts and you're going from that period to when you graduate high school. Were you just in and out of it? Were you like super focused, or were you just kind of hanging in there? What was your mindset at those times?
I think when you need martial arts like that for some period of time, I think the value is a little different. So it definitely was something we loved. It was my favorite sport. So although I did track and cross country and I was a heptathlete and I did cheer and palm.
Not cheer. Anything but
I
cheer.
know, I know. The
Hey, we
kime
bring the
was very
truth to this
similar. The
podcast.
kime was very similar. Okay, like that pop and lock, you need that in karate, and you need it in hip hop and cheer. So,
All
I did come
right.
back from a camp once and went right from a whole week of like palm camp, I think, and then went straight into a bell test. And you were at the bell test. I don't know if you remember this, but I got completely turned around in the middle of, I think, Pinan Sandan, and I turned around and just fed my fist into my face. Because the hikites are different, and I got disoriented, and I don't know who hit me. I was bleeding all over my gi. I couldn't figure out. I was dazed and confused. And I think you were the one that named me Grace Kelley, and I was Grace Kelley for months, if not
I remember that name.
at least a
You know, it's
year.
so
So
funny. They say kata's not violent. These people don't know how to do kata right, right? That's why they call
to
it
cut the violence.
self-defense.
Oh my
We can laugh
gosh.
about it now. Yeah,
It was
that's fun.
horrifying. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't believe I did that. But it was just desserts, because I had literally laughed at a girl who kicked herself in the head. And I mean, I laughed so hard when I saw her do that. And then just like within 24 hours, I was punching myself in the face. So, you know, God has a way of humbling you sometimes.
Do you, do you remember in those tests, Diane? Remember Diane Yarnetsky or something? And
Oh
I just
yeah.
remember her testing, and she did her kata, and she was facing 45 degrees off. Obviously, she was so lightheaded, she couldn't see anything. I said, Diane, are you okay? And she's looking, yeah, yeah, I'm good. I said, are you looking at me? Yep, I'm looking. I'll never forget that because it was in that same test, facing the wrong direction. Well, at what point in your life that you felt you're going to do martial arts for the rest of your life? When did that point hit? Yesterday?
I wanted to. I wanted to do that. So that was definitely the goal. In fact, I moved at one point and I had a choice to either to go to California or to Tucson to study, and I needed to choose which lane to study karate, and I chose to go to Tucson. And that definitely opened doors to the where I'm at today, but it led to what looked like a dead end in my own training.
Yeah,
Um I didn't have the courage to go to California and train, and but that's okay. It's an interesting story of redemption of how things kind of come full circle. But I
they do.
I loved training, and I tried. I was working like 12 or 13-hour days, trying to support myself and then train in the evenings. And at some point, it was untenable, and I started going less and less to the dojo. Eventually, the dojo was closed. Um, Ironically, the California dojo is not closed, so that would have been the better choice. But that led to me, meeting my husband, getting married, starting our family, moving back to Phoenix. And then when I was back in Phoenix, I ended up with this little 5-year-old boy who was just absolutely hell bent on being a Ninja Turtle. And so that's when I called the only person I knew in my area that I loved and trust, which was Sensei Marlon. And I said, "Can I come back?"
Absolutely. Now, before we go any further, no, didn't know this. Are you telling me you went to U of A?
No, 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 no.
Oh, okay.
No, I
I was
didn't
gonna
go to
say,
U of
all
A.
right,
I
we're
taught a
stopping
while.
this podcast. For those
No,
out
no,
there, I'm
no.
an ASU guy here in Arizona. U of A, oh my God. I was gonna say, all right, you're kicked out of the organization.
No.
Anyways, Well, the question I was asking before was like for me, it was in my brown belt years or time that it dawned on me that I think I could do this for the rest of my life. Up until that point, I just thought something will come up and I'll quit and move on. Was there a point in your career where you thought, yeah, you're a martial arts for the rest of your life
Yeah, when I came back,
when you came
there
back?
was no doubt. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I had done so many other types of martial arts, from Shoryu Goju to capoeira. I did fencing. I mean, I loved competing. I loved training. It was just a matter of like coming home to your original style. And I've talked to other people who've, are now in our dojo training, and
Yeah,
they're comparing, what we're doing to their original style. And I'm like, gosh, it never replaces your heart. Like where you start is such a
right.
unique gift. Coming back home to the style that I started in was a gift to me, and it was a restoration, and I it feels like home. So I love Wado.
So what that tells me now is I can go talk to Sensei Fariba about this, that because you studied in these other arts, this will make you one of the best kata judges in the world. Is that what you're saying to me? Us
Don't give
Wado
me
people
a
laugh about
video
this.
to watch. Do not ask me to grade a video. I cannot grade a video for anything. Tell Sensei Fariba that, okay?
Uh, hey, we've all said that. And then she
Oh,
says something, we'll hide
videos are
something
gonna be
and
the
move
death of me.
on.
Give me
No,
people. I will grade people.
let me ask you a question that's kind of controversial at times. It's competition. You know, you got the old school people that hate competition, think it's hurts the art, and then you got other people that think competition's everything. Where's your position on that?
Well, that's interesting. I'm having a lot of conversations right now because I'm trying to bring Arizona back together after
Yes.
COVID. And thankfully, I mean, you've been so amazing at keeping things going in the dojo. So, but now with the sale of the building and not and losing that venue, we're having to kind of branch out and be really purposeful about reconnecting with dojos. And we're having a lot
Yes.
of these conversations right now. See, I love sport and I love competing. I understand that it's not everything and it's not the be all end all of training, but I do see
Correct.
it as very important for particularly our youth. It's something that's exciting. It gives purpose to the training. It helps to inspire you when you go through like the doldrums because there's doldrums in
Oh,
anything that you do.
absolutely.
So that's it kind of is the a little bit of salt, a little bit of spice to get you remotivated and keep you going. It's also an interesting opportunity to test your own character. There's not many things in life that is like a stress inoculation, and competition is that. So you don't want to avoid stress your whole life. You definitely want to be able to have stress and then recover from stress. And each time you do that, you can kind of expand what you're capable of enduring and experiencing by having these little stress inoculation moments, but you have to be able to recover from them. And I think that's the big thing that's dangerous in our culture is just stress that's constant and chronic absolutely just destroys our health.
Yeah.
But a competition, you are stressful. You have to face how you handle stress. Do you run away from it? Do you freeze when you are fearful or under stress? Are you able to keep your wits about you? Can you go through it? So competition gives you that opportunity to kind of test your mettle and see what you're made of and then see how you can improve over time. But again, I think it's just one leg of training. You've got three legs to
Yes.
your martial art, your style, the curriculum that you're learning, the sport, but then how that's applied to an enclosed street fight, which is a completely different type of
Yes.
fighting. The kime point in sport is totally different than the kime point in an actual fight. And, you know, it's important to know what that looks like and how that feels in real life too.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a black belt in possum. You know, so when I have to defend myself, it's a great art. Lay down, play dead.
Took me a
Try to.
second to figure out where you're going. Oh,
It's
that's
a
good. I'm
skill,
so
I'm telling you.
so impressed with you,
Yeah.
Sensei. This is
Run
why I admire
away.
you so much.
Yeah, you know one thing that I really loved about competition as a teacher is that gave me the ability to teach, especially the young, life, because competition is judgmental. There's errors, there's mistakes, there's incompetence, there's bias. You got everything that's involved with life in a karate tournament. And I had a hard time explaining that to parents, especially parents of kids that were not athletic and probably didn't have a chance to win, but trying to explain to them that this skill of managing chaos is a vital skill for the rest of your life, in addition to self-defense and the stress of competing. But
I think
they,
it's amazing. nothing else will let you know about your little one or how they're processing the world than putting them in a ring and having to be vulnerable. But I also think that's important as sensei is like, like it's so easy to become like the king of your world, but how
Yeah.
vulnerable it is. It's one thing to talk theory when you're putting somebody out there into the ring and telling them to how to behave and what to do and what to think. But it's entirely different when you're having to go out there and your students are watching you. So, that keeps you humble real quick. So I have a lot of respect
Yeah.
for seeing the dojo owners and the coaches that are still competing or
Yes.
refereeing or out there making calls that can be controversial that people can disagree with and attack you for because that takes a different level of competence and confidence to endure it, but it also makes you a different type of teacher when you're
Yeah.
alone in that dojo with your students.
I tell you I believe in competition. I think it's a great tool. That's not the end
It's
all.
all, yeah, that's a good way to
Go,
say it. Yeah.
going into instructing, are there benefits to being an instructor as far as
Oh,
being a martial artist, the growth of a martial artist?
there is nothing like teaching. In fact, I try very hard to make sure that we have as many people in a teaching role as fast as possible. I mean, if you're a
Yeah.
blue belt, turn around. Can you teach this to the white belt? Can you take what you know, the little bit that you know, and can you pass it to someone? And this is a big thing in Chandler, where we're I always tell everyone to look downward, like the most important student in the entire dojo. Who is it?
Yeah.
It's the white belt. If we don't have white belts coming in to the dojo and starting on those mats, then our dojo is dying. The white belt is the most important person in that mat because they had the highest barrier to entry. They're the ones walking into a closed community. They're feeling awkward. They don't know how to move. They don't fit in quite yet. And yet they faced all of that and all of those fears just to bow on the mat and walk out there in that white belt and stand there and hope they don't get mocked. That person is the bravest person in the room. So, if our hearts are pointing towards that white belt, and then if we then take the time to recognize that you're the one that has gone before. So technically, as you had said in a podcast I recently saw that you did, sensei, teacher, it really literally means one who has come before. Well, that can be the blue belt before the white belt, and they're
Absolutely.
passing things down a line. And honestly, I think that's beautiful. But you also don't realize how much you know until you've said it to someone. And then when you're actually teaching someone else, how much you have to be held accountable for what you're doing.
Yes.
You can't tell someone to hold a stance or a dachi that you are yourself not modeling.
That's
So
correct.
I think it's a beautiful thing.
One of the biggest mistakes I made in my martial arts career was not getting teens to teach or even lower ranks. I came up with that old school mentality. I was taught and brainwashed that only an adult senior instructor should teach people. Why would you have a green belt teaching a white belt their bad habits? That kind of mentality. And then when COVID hit, which was only about 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't have anybody. I had to use teens to help me teach of various ranks. I was stunned how good they were. And not only that, there were skills that were coming out of them teaching that they wouldn't have got anywhere. What happens when you teach somebody something wrong? By accident, because we don't know everything and you don't know what you're doing until you start teaching it and making mistakes. And how do you handle it with grace and humor rather than getting upset or angry, which is the old way of doing things. Fantastic. I really wish I had started younger people earlier in my life.
Oh, I well,
Unbelievable.
and I think younger people they're eager to not always be subjected, but also get to show what they know. So
Yeah.
it gives them an opportunity to step up and lead and yeah, see
It,
what they are like as a leader.
the thing I believe this before we move on to officiating. I believe this in my heart and soul. If you do not teach, you only go get this high with martial art understanding. Once you start teaching, things start opening up you would never got without that process, and then you start moving up. And then you get up here and then you learn you know nothing.
Go there.
I know nothing. The more I learn, the less I know. God, is that a bummer? Especially the older you get, the less you know. All right, officiating. You became a recent WKF official. Very stressful. I remember that first trip down there. It was horrible, horrible. And then going down, I just remember being down there shaking like a leaf, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm embarrassing." my 4-year-olds could handle this better than I could. And it was so funny because I failed my Kumite license, but passed my kata. And being Wado, everybody's like, oh my God, how could that possibly happen? So my question to you is there a benefit to being a karate official
Oh, uh, yes,
rather than just breaking the hearts of small children?
I do
Is
enjoy
there
that.
some valuable? Of course.
No, actually, that's the hardest thing. So I'm naturally an encourager, and I'm much more a coaching minded type of person. I can hold discipline. I like discipline, obviously, but giving people black and white answers are not something that I really excel at doing. I'm much better at seeing where the gray is and how we can connect and what can. I'm an empath, so maybe we're all right. There's just a way of looking at it. So that you, you were the one that got me into officiating, Chewy.
I know. I hear you big time on that.
Oh boy,
My
I did
next
not
guest
understand what I was getting into.
My next guest is Doug Jefferson, and he was the one that got me back into USA
This
Christ.
all
So
starts with
I,
him.
I
Okay.
have anger toward him. So I get it. Well, the thing, like I mentioned off camera about one thing that I never saw coming, it helped me become a better teacher because as I started to evaluate elite athletes, especially in kata, believe it or not, and started to see how, regardless of style they moved and they performed and stuff, I could see that I had flaws in my teaching, and that I then went back to and started tweaking my teaching, and it helped my students. I believe my students are better martial artists than I was back in the 70s. There's no doubt in my mind because of what I learned from officiating. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
But
eye-opening situations, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be there. But also, it's a way to give back. So not only am I learning things and then bringing it
yes.
back into the dojo, a lot of it's character. There's a ton. We were doing a referee seminar, I think you and I this summer, and there were some
Mhm.
great conversations. But like so many times, I'm like, well, why be angry? Like you have all the tools in front of you. You've got the tools in your hand. Here's how you use them. And we were talking to both referees and coaches and talking about like you don't need to be upset. Just think critically. How do you solve the problem with the rules that you've got? There's a way to make this work for everybody. And I think it's interesting how in these different roles we just keep learning how to think outside the box, resolve problems, think on your feet quickly. These are good skills. I mean, going to Wado, I mean, these are when I was joking this weekend, social nagashas, social flips and ties of hockey. But I mean, we do it whether you're using the rules or you're in a conversation or you're in a fight. So yeah, it's just
It's amazing.
yeah.
You mentioned before about, because I had asked you what your purpose going forward was in the previous conversation we had, and you brought up an injury that you had occurred. And it sounded like, I didn't get in depth with you on that. It sounded like a injury that was because of poor teaching. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that and how that
Well,
influenced you going forward?
yeah. So the way I got into personal training and particularly into lifting happened through injury. I had sat under some bad coaches, whether both in club situations and in karate situations, and having someone who didn't understand the technique, didn't know how to teach the technique correctly, has had lifelong ramifications. The easy point that's not karate related would be in swimming. There was years there where they were having athletes overstretch their shoulders. So I was having my shoulders literally overstretched in a dangerous way where they were like loosening to the point where I couldn't keep the shoulder in the socket. And that's extremely painful. And then come to find out it's an injury that came from bad coaching. So I did the butterfly, and breaststroke. Those were my two main categories, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it eventually, what was happening in the shoulder was detrimental to actually being able to compete as a swimmer. So, and that's unfortunate. And I had a similar situation with some different stances and with my knees. So, learning how the body is supposed to work and learning some of the principles was one of the foundational reasons why I got into kinesiology and exercise sciences, was because I never wanted to be a coach that hurt an athlete because of my ignorance. So, it really was a driving force to what I studied in college and yeah, and now what I do. So. I want to make sure I have good technique and you understand what's going on, how the body works, and which pain is important. Is it the pain in the joint? Is it pain in the muscle? Are we? how much do we want to stretch? How much do we want to lift? How these different disciplines can rob each other of different skills and yet how they can complement. It's all important.
So I guess those squat kicks with somebody on your shoulders back in the old days was not the right proper training.
Maybe. Depends on how
I'm
much
paying the
movement.
price. I'm paying the price now with my knees. I'm needy. What can I say because of those? Now,
You only get them.
you
You only get
you own a martial arts school. What is your mission now? In addition, let me see if I can frame this right. So you own a martial arts school. You're moving that forward. You've got your first tournament starting here next month, trying to get Arizona back reorganized and back on its path that we were there before. What is your mission now going forward?
oh,
What is your passion or whatever? What is it that drives you?
you know, I loved what karate was when I was growing up in Arizona. There was such a connection between a lot of the dojos. We had five
Yeah.
amazing tournaments here. I love some of the different friends that I had, you know, at that period in life. And after COVID, it's just not there anymore. So I think for the immediate future, my passion is like, can we bring all these dojos back together? And I've been thoroughly enjoying talking to all sorts of dojos, some from that I've known. Well, we don't want to say how many years because no one needs to know that number. But I haven't talked to
It's a small
reconnect.
number.
It's a small number. Just don't need to go on the record with that. But and then some that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, but man, we're having some great conversations. So seeing if we can bring that together and if we all have pieces of a puzzle, it may not all be the same root cause, it may not all be the same style or philosophies, but that's the neat thing about sport. Sport brings all of us together. We can agree on a set of rules and we can agree on a high level of refereeing. And with a high level of refereeing, we're giving back to the athlete in a responsible way. We're asking these athletes to train and be intentional and be honorable in what they're doing. And if we can do that as dojo owners and then as schools, bring up a referee guild inside of Arizona that can give back to our students so that we can send strong Arizona students into the nationals and then into the Pan Americans. I mean that's a great goal. So, but I mean, in order to do that, we have to work together and we have to link arms. And, if we all do it, the talent just rises in the state. And I'd love to see Arizona doing and producing what it was producing a few years ago. So
Well, it will.
I think that's
Not to, this is not a political discussion, but I was thinking of you in Arizona when I was watching Trump and the Middle East things going on. And the things that I got out of that was one, you have to start with a vision, because I was doing what you're doing now 10 years ago, and you had to bring the vision so everybody understands where are we all going. And it has to be Arizona first, not your personal school first. Many mistakes by many instructors. You see that all the time where they're thinking about their students before other people. I just think you can think state first, not at the detriment of your own school. And then you have to take money and power out of this equation. If you can solve those problems with a clean vision, you can accomplish anything. Because most people, I believe this in my heart and soul, are really down to earth quality people who care. But there has to be a
yeah.
vision. So you're on your vision, you got your tournament. How is that coming along for you?
We're getting great
Are you
positive
ready?
responses right now. I mean, oh God, no, no, but
I
I'll
want
be
to
calling
interview
you
right
about
after
that.
the tournament.
Oh, no, no,
I mean,
no.
what
After this
that
phone call, I have some favors to ask.
sounds good.
But no, I actually we're getting great responses. I I just spent the morning actually down at the venue mapping out how we're going to lay out all the mats and the things. I want to make sure it's really well organized. And I had about 3 or 4 extra people show up to be down there because they're passionate about how it works and they had opinions. And I drove away from there just very humbled and very grateful. I couldn't believe the different people that are getting involved. And this Saturday, for the next few Saturdays, we're just open the dojo to free sparring and free training for anyone in the state. So I've got a team coming up from Douglas, a couple coming from Tucson, the Tucson area, one's coming down from Prescott, and we're a couple from around the valley. We're just going to show up. We're going to have fun. I've opened the floor. I'm like anyone who wants to lead the training. Like like you said, it can't be about Chandler. It can't be about, well, good God, not about me. it has to be about the athlete. And then in there, while the athletes are training, can we actually start taking the craft of judging and refereeing seriously and give back to these athletes? So we're all training. And I'm blown away with the response. And I'm excited about it. So I'm also humbled by the fact that people are responding to the vision in such an enthusiastic way. So we'll
Well, no,
see. We'll see how it goes. It's just the first attempt.
yeah, and the first one is the hard one, and then it gets worse. I'm being
Ah,
fu-
so much to look
Here's
forward
a
to.
I
Thank
no,
you.
I'm telling you, my sensei, Marlon and I put on, I don't know, 40 tournaments in our lifetime,
You
and
did.
very worthwhile and very important. The other thing, last little bit advice I'd pass on to you is
Thank you.
to make sure the competition is open to all people. That means not just competitors, but helping operate the tournament, refereeing, coaching. So the non-athlete martial artist has something to do to offer, but there has to be, they have to be shown that there's value coming from that.
Oh
Would
yeah.
you agree with that?
Oh,
So you got to
100%.
get the whole dojo involved.
Few years ago when I was first like coming through the USA and KF ranks of judging, there we ended up with no table help one year, and I don't know how this happened, but it was just spinning. Our tatami was just spinning. So at some point, I'm like, I can do the computer. I got this. So I'm sitting there at the computer. That is the worst position. Oh my God, I'll do that reffing before I'll do this computer thing again. It was so stressful. I couldn't believe how much work went into that and how many things I was having to listen to. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. I'm so grateful for anyone that works that computer. And yeah, they're not always karateka that are sitting there doing that. They're parents or they're spectators that have volunteered. And I've just been putting out the request for that. And again, I've got green and purple belts who are like, can I help with the tables? And I'm like, yes, this is amazing. So
Well, I'll make sure that I post your email address to the show. So if somebody needs to get a hold of you to support you in any way they can, they'll be able to get a hold of you. Well, thank you very much. I want to have another show with you in about a year. I want to talk in a year about, well, one, you got some food products that you, health products, not food, health products that want to get into a little bit about train development, and that'll be a good theme. And then we can talk about how horrible you had to go to therapy after the tournament. And
yeah, definitely sucking my thumb in the corner rocking.
it was horrible. Oh my God, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Well, with that, let's close the show. Thank you very much. Before I sign out, I want to talk about next show. Our next show will be Doug Jefferson. Many people know Doug Jefferson, and everybody that knows him think he's a great, wonderful guy and big old teddy bear. But he was really a bad guy back in the early days. We were arch enemies back in the 70s
Who
and
was
into
the
the
bad guy,
80s.
Sensei?
What was it me? I'm innocent.
Oh,
Remember, I have a black belt in possum. So
sorry.
we're gonna have a lot. We're really good friends. Doug and I have turned out to be some of the closest friends. We have the same philosophies in life, and so that show is going to be a little bit about old school versus new school and what we thought back in those days, good things and some bad things. We didn't have good character. We didn't have a lot of great role models, at least in my opinion, which at times almost caused me to quit. I had put people on pedestals and found out that they weren't what I thought they were. And so that was interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So with that, I'm closing the show. Please share with your friends. Please send me any input, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. If you know anything technically I'm doing wrong, let me know. I'm an elderly person here trying to be modern, so it's been a challenge. Like I was talking to Scott last show, I'm up to green belt now. I feel I can turn on the buttons and get things done, but someday I want to be a showdown in podcasting. With
You're on
that,
your way, Sensei.
I'll be there. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you.